to the Crooked Table podcast, where we discuss the world of film from a fresh angle. And now your host, Robert Yaniz Jr.
Welcome to the Crooked Table podcast. This is Rob, and if you've been following along with us in these last few episodes of 2020, I sat down with frequent guest Jackson Smith to talk about The Matrix Reloaded. That episode is up right now. The Matrix Revolutions half will be dropping in a few days, but in the meantime, as a little holiday bonus, I'm throwing out some outtakes from the episode I did in 2019 with Freddy Yaniz for our 100th episode. We did a two-part discussion on the original Matrix, and there ended up being about a half hour of sort of deleted outtakes, little tangents that we went on, things that weren't 100% related to the movie, and I've compiled them all here. This once was a Patreon exclusive, but since I'm completely redoing the Patreon page and profile going forward for 2021, it made sense to just send this out there with the rest of the Matrix content that the show has produced. So here is a compilation of Freddie and I talking about a bunch of stuff related to The Matrix. Enjoy. Kai made a good point. She said, well, I feel like this kind of movie that really complex and that really challenges casual moviegoers and cinephiles alike to be like, hey, come on, you guys are smart. You can get this. Come on this journey with us. She really pointed out that there really hadn't been another one like that until something like Inception. Yeah. Which again deals with dreams a lot, which is also interesting. Yeah. So there's something with that topic that I don't know. I don't think there's been any. Of course, like I said, I'm biased, but I don't think there's been any movie that blows your mind like The Matrix has, and at least before The Matrix, right? You know, what is the previous generations like? Well, there's like 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's a lot of movies. It's people. You know, like the. Planet of the Apes, I think. No, maybe Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes is a big one. But that's a moment. That's not like a movie. Right. Well, it's true because that's a mindfuck in a moment, not a mindfuck. It's like a Sixth Sense style twist where the whole time you think you're in this fantasy world and you're like, oh my god, this is Earth, because the implication of the end of that movie is that we blew it up. Humanity had such tensions rising amongst them that they ended up in a world-ending nuclear war, where then it's kind of the same thing that happened in The Matrix. Sort of, in a way. Because we led to our own destruction. We led to our own destruction. I mean, that's the premise of a lot of movies. That's a big sci-fi, yeah. But we became so power hungry that we relied on AI so much that the AI decided to take over, like several other movies decide to go with, and then we tried to hit the skies because we were solar powered at the time. We kind of destroyed the world. You get a little bit out in the Animatrix. There's the Second Renaissance, parts 1 and 2, that really delves into how the war with the machines started and how it evolved and all of that. You know, I up until this point, I think my favorite movies were like Jim Carrey comedies and like Batman sequels and like Batman Forever and things like, again, with Jim Carrey. Which is why I picked Ace Ventura when I did my episode. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't really realize how much purpose and how much you could stuff into a film, like how much meat you could put on those bones, really. So this was the movie that really helped me realize that was a thing that you could do. I hadn't seen a lot of the classic films at this point. It was mostly just, whatever was popular in the 90s. Yeah. You haven't seen Pulp Fiction? Independence. No, not really. Our parents didn't really let me watch Pulp Fiction. So I didn't really seek it out until I think maybe around Kill Bill time, like in my late teens, I think. Mm-hmm. I was Jurassic Park and Independence Day, like other Jeff Goldblum movies, I guess. Yeah. It's all Jim Carrey and Jeff Goldblum movies. Basically. Oh, when they were in a movie called Earth Girls Are Easy in like the late 80s, early 90s, which is a weird movie. It's your favorite movie? No, it's not. I didn't. I rented it. We rented it one time, and I was like, what the hell is this? This is weird. Because I was like, Jim Carrey's in it? What? It's so Jim Carrey and Jeff Goldblum-y. I was like, my two favorite movie stars. They're both the quirkiest actors, too, though. I don't know if it was the quirkiest, but they're up there. I don't know. You see interviews with both of them. They both have, like,
They're wonderful. They're so great to watch because
I've actually
so many like.
This is already like it's a
tangent. Yeah.
This is like a tangent within a tangent, but because Jeff Goldblum's in the MCU as the Grand Master in the Marvel movies, and I've seen people being like, hey, when they bring in Reed Richards, they should bring in like an older Reed Richards, and I've seen people be like, Jim Carrey would be awesome at that, like an older, like established Reed Richards, and I was like, I could totally see that actually, because his whole thing when he started out his career was he played in a movie called Rubber Face, and he was like, the way he could move his body, so it'd be kind of interesting if he would play like an Elastic Man in a movie, would just be like kind of an interesting way to play off of that. So Kevin Feige, if you're listening to the Crooked Table podcast, Jim Carrey, call him up.
It would have been cool if they
give me my percentage.
that would have been cool if they cast him as a collector.
Yeah, that would have been good too.
Because him and the Grandmaster, they have some relation.
They're brothers or something.
Yeah, they're brothers or something. That would have been really cool to have that relation between them.
I'm still holding out hope. Jim Carrey's doing a lot of things now again. So maybe one of these days. Anyway, back to The Matrix. The sequels I think you and I both enjoy, but they're very much a mixed bag where some of what they do are really interesting and really cool, and then other stuff you're like, okay, we didn't need this. I've always fantasized about doing kind of a fan edit of 2 and 3 as like one movie, because it does feel like so elongated.
Yeah.
Do you agree that those two movies are fun but obviously not great?
They're entertaining, yes, but don't ask me any questions about them because I don't. The Matrix is my favorite movie. The other two, I pretty much like. Yeah, and they don't exist.
It's interesting, almost. Like this movie. This movie was such a cinematic like landmark, but people don't really. I feel like in the like third like decades from now, I feel like even now, honestly, if you ask young people, like teenagers now, they're like, oh yeah, The Matrix, I know that movie. That's like from before I was born, whatever. I'll be like, did you know they made sequels to that? I feel like they'll be like, really? There are sequels? Like I feel like it's going to be one of those things that people discover years from now and be surprised that there were sequels to this movie because it's not talked about as the Matrix trilogy. It's a Star Wars trilogy, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Nobody talks about The Matrix as a trilogy, but it is a trilogy. It's just the sequels were not very well received in general, and I understand why, because I feel the same way.
Well, it turned into a cash cow.
Yeah, I mean, and there's there are good ideas in there.
It's a good movie, but it doesn't have the same artisticness, I guess you could say, as the first one.
Right. Well, it's almost like they fell in love with their own mythology and they decided to push it way too far to the point where they're like, oh, so we have to explain.
Now there's like werewolves.
Yeah, we have to explain how werewolves exist in this world. I'm like, nobody was asking that. Nobody cares about it. Why are there ghost people? What is up with these dudes these albino guys with the dreadlocks? What the hell is happening? Like they went too far. Like I like what they did with the main three. I like what they did with Smith, especially. I think Hugo Weaving is the best part of those sequels, honestly, because he's the only one I think that realizes, because his performance is on another level. I think he's the only one that realizes that those films are not, at their core, not particularly good, and so he's having a blast just playing everything. Mr. Anderson. Yeah. The way he does, like he does some of that here, but in there it's like, forget it. He's really hamming it up. By the time you get to the third one, he's got his like drawn out maniacal, like Dr. Evil style laugh. When he takes care of the Oracle and things like that. I have a theory about the agents. Because they're all like white, they're all like very, very Caucasian, like middle-aged white men, basically, right? Yes. Or like Agent Smith, I think Hugo Weaving was at least 40 when he made this movie, right? About there, or like thereabouts, late 30s, early 40s. But he's got like the receding hairline and things, so they're all pretty much like middle-aged white men. And so I have this theory that because of that, they feel like they represent kind of and this might be, tell me if you...
Is this a race thing?
It's a race thing, but it's also a gender thing too. Tell me you can call me out if you think I'm reading too much into this. But to me, it feels like they really represent like the oppression of like the patriarchy and things like that. And I even noticed that they're white men and they seem particularly pissed with Neo. And you can almost read into it that it's kind of a metaphor of like the white patriarchy being pissed at a white man for kind of rebelling against the system, literally in this case. Because think about this. Neo is like the only white men in the Nebuchadnezzar crew. There's him and there's Cypher. Cypher, who betrays Morpheus and goes back to the white patriarchy, and Neo, who does the opposite. But other than that, there's women and there's different minorities, like black people and different minorities.
Is this like a Bill and Ted situation?
Bill and Ted. What do you mean Bill and Ted?
Because Bill and Ted is all about like against the patriarchy and.
Well, I mean, you could read into it. There's a lot, and I think that.
Are you saying that that's the same character in the Matrix, and he grew up?
I'd be cool with that.
He grew up, became a programmer, and now they took the time machine, went back,
and then he stayed in the Matrix,
took over the world,
became a cop, ended up on a bus that had to keep going over. What was it, 50?
That was a program.
It was a test. It was the speed protocol.
If all of this was under one studio, that would be fantastic.
That would be. To
go and just be like, this was one program the whole time.
So what do you think about that read on it? Like, I think that they have certain themes they're trying to get across, and it feels like that is one way that they're sort of baking that into the structure of the film and the characters.
I see where you're going with it. I just feel like,
I mean, you don't have to. If you don't want to focus on that, you could look at it at surface level. But that's what's so great about this movie.
Yeah, they are around the same age, and they are.
It's like, how dare you?
They are all white.
Yes, and they're the only, other than Neo, who they really have like, especially Smith has like this vendetta against.
Yeah.
There's Cypher, who goes bad, and then all the other white men in the movie are bad. In this movie, when we get to the sequels, then it's like there's Counselor Han, and then there's the Architect, and it gets more complicated. But with Smith, I think his arc is the most interesting throughout the trilogy, and this movie kind of plants the seeds that he ends up being more of an anarchist. You know what I mean? So there's the system where everybody's literally plugged into it, programmed to work their 9-to-5 corporate jobs, wear their suit and tie, and which is literally the part where Morpheus and Neo are walking through, and obviously it ends up not being the Matrix, but it ends up being a test program. But still, everybody's just walking. You can imagine all getting to their little jobs with their bagel and their newspaper in hand, trying to clock in, clock out, and bullshit. Like that's their image of that. So there's that system. There's the people that are against the system, and there's Smith that are like, hey, both sides, middle fingers to both of you. I live my own life. He's basically the Joker in a lot of ways. In Gotham City, criminals want to steal, they want to profit, they want to do their thing, and then Batman stops them, and Joker's like, I don't care, I'll steal a pile of money and burn it, I don't give a shit. I'm just here to stir things up, because that's what I do, that's my function. I'm the virus in this scenario. And it's funny that he mentions about humanity being a virus, and then it's sort of evolving into a virus in the sequels, essentially. So what do you think of Keanu Reeves in this movie? Like, 'cause this was supposed to be Will Smith initially, and Will Smith is like, I don't know if this is what I want to do after, what was it, Men in Black probably, or whatever at the time. So what do you think about Keanu? Do you think he was the right choice for this movie, and I guess why?
That's interesting, because it's interesting to picture Will Smith in this role instead of Keanu.
It would be a totally different movie. I feel like
it would be. I mean, I feel like Keanu Reeves would play the bewildered, like, what the hell is happening? Like, character more than Will Smith was. It's kind of like the only way I can picture it is like Will Smith in Men in Black when he first realizes that there's aliens and stuff. But even then, it's not like as much of a bewilderment as Keanu Reeves goes through in this movie. So, I mean, it's possible that Will Smith could have played this role, but I'm still privy to having Keanu Reeves, just because it's perfect the way it is.
Well, and he does kind of bring that sense of wonder to it. And I'll go.
And another thing, it's and just like the hair and everything too. Will Smith usually has his hair like cut down very, already,
buzzed or sort of.
So it just having like little things like him having a full head of hair in one scene when he's in the Matrix or in a program, as in when he's in the real world, he has it completely shaved off. That adds more to the fact that he's been reborn.
I was going to say, because I was going to say,
and to the shock factor.
He didn't have it shaved off. He's a baby. He's just growing hair for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the shock factor when he wakes up and he's completely bald, he has no hair on him whatsoever.
Right.
That moment is a lot more shocking than if it was Will Smith with his short hair and then he has like a little bit shorter hair.
Right.
So
there's also
unless they gave him like a wig or something, I don't know. Or bigger hair, I don't know.
Damn it. I mean, stop talking about the sequels so much. But in the second one, it's hard to not look at
I don't know that much about this.
You don't remember as much about them?
Nah, I kind of just pretend like, they're entertaining, but
right.
I'd like to think it as The Matrix is this one film.
I saw them more. I saw more often than you did.
Because I feel like this movie was meant to be like one film.
Right.
I don't know if it was ever intended.
And then they were like, what else will we do?
Okay, so we'll expand the mythos and make it, werewolves and these ghosts. And, he has all these powers now, so we have to throw things at him that are beyond everything, because the original antagonist is they're being destroyed very easily. So we have to turn Mr. Smith into a virus. We have to create all these like ghost people and stuff,
right,
to have a true antagonist for Neo to fight. Otherwise it'd just be a very easy film and very quick film,
right?
So there has to be some conflict. So once you get out of the first film, kind of has like an indie-ish vibe to it.
Oh yeah, very much so.
And the second and third get like more of a blockbuster feel.
And the CG, which interests the CG in the sequels, especially the second one, not aged well at all. Like that looks goofy as shit.
Because
the whole brawl thing, they went too crazy with it.
When they did the CGI in the first one, it was for key moments that it needed CGI.
In this one, yeah.
Yes, but when you start getting into blockbusters, then it's like I want to throw CGI at every single possible thing. Well, when you throw so much CGI at a film, that costs a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the money for the expensive CGI, you get subpar CGI. You know what I mean? And when you don't, and for instance, The Matrix, they saved their CGI money.
Well, they had
for shots.
They had a tighter budget
for the first one.
For the first one, yeah,
exactly. So but also they spent all their money for very crucial scenes to have it on.
Yeah,
and. Even the part where, like, again, where his mouth is being glued together, they don't even show it when it starts being glued together. It cuts to Agent Smith, and then it cuts back to him, and he's already, like, halfway glued. You know what I mean? That's a big, like, budget thing that they incorporated in there. They could have did it from the beginning of his mouth being glued together, but they decided not to for money purposes.
Yeah.
Little things like that they probably looked at, and when you scale it to a blockbuster, it's just not gonna have the same quality.
Yeah, and this cost $63 million.
The first one,
right? Which is not that much considering it's a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, because most of it is stunts. Most of it is stunts, and there's very little CGI. Yeah, it was pretty much all stunts. I can't. Maybe the part with the helicopter.
Yeah, the CG is the Sentinels themselves are probably the most obvious use of CG in the movie.
Yes.
The ship moving around and like some of the shots we get of that. The exterior of the Nebuchadnezzar, but other than that, it's like mostly like the bullet time and like the morphing of faces and things like that. But even with that, there's like some creative ways where when Agent Smith takes over a different person, it's like the homeless man in the subway gets like the code on his face, and then the train whizzes by, and then it's Agent Smith. Like
it's like a clever way.
It's like if you watch. The Flash, things like that. Like half the time, you don't like see him running fast. You guys like a whoosh of air, and you're like, oh, he came in really fast. Just because they have to save their money for
exactly
when they want to use that. Also, like in the when Neo's running away from the agents to get out of the Matrix at the end of the movie. It's like the lady in the kitchen holding the knife. Neo turns and the knife comes at him, and it's an agent there. Like things like that.
Yeah.
Like they use creative ways around it. Necessity is the mother of invention. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. You know, when you need to come up with a way of accomplishing something with limited resources, guess what? A lot of times you'll figure out a way to do that, and usually it'll end up being more successful at achieving that than if you were just like, let's just slap CGI on it. And I think in the sequels, which like I said, I need to stop referencing so much, but I think in the sequels they just got lazy and they're just like, oh, let's just CGI it instead of figuring out other ways to handle certain things. Plus the fact that Neo at the end of this movie basically becomes a superhero flying away. Essentially, they're like, all right, well, we need to like CGI it up because there's stuff in the Reloaded that like when he's flying in the air and like all those cars and everything are whirling around behind him at the end of Reloaded because he's going to save Trinity.
Yeah.
That actually looks really good. There's stuff in there that looks really good. It's just the fact that they use CG for some of the hand-to-hand stuff looks really cheesy, and they look like rubber people. If you remember, do you remember the video game The Path of Neo that we had on, I think, PS2? That was one of my favorite levels because you got to actually play a lot of these sequences from this movie.
Yeah, and you could go and run on the walls.
Yeah, that was fun. So the whole time watching that, I was like, shit, I have that game. I have a PS2 still. Yeah. I should dig that out and be like, and jump into that because that was a fun. I don't think that game was very well received in general, but I liked just because
I like that one, and I like the one with the Smiths.
Yeah.
You get to fight the Smiths.
Oh yeah. Well, because it's like basically highlights from the trilogy from Neo's perspective.
Exactly.
I think because they put out Enter the Matrix, and people were just like, what the hell? I'm in like some other story playing as Jada Pinkett. I don't want to play as Jada Pinkett Smith and this other dude. I want to play as Neo. So they're like, oh, okay, crap. You just won a game where you can play as Neo. All right, here you go. You're the one now. Yeah, congratulations.
The Path of Neo, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much.
You're the one. Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, and I like both games for different reasons. They had that theme in there.
It's a subtle theme.
It's subtle, exactly. Whereas with Sense8, because the world has changed, they can be like, oh no, we're going to have gay characters, trans characters, it's all good, whatever.
We're going to have orgies.
Yeah, there's like an orgy every other week or whatever on that. I mean, not week, it's you know what I mean? It's not aired every week to week, but like I watched the one episode I saw of that, I think, there was an orgy. I was like, oh, what the fuck? And then I came to realize, oh, that's a thing that they just do. Like, we can all get inside each other's heads. Let's just all fuck all the time. I'm like, all right, whatever. Interesting. Yeah. That's good for them for doing their thing.
Or you could think of it as like a metaphor.
Maybe. I have to watch that.
Like they're all intertwined.
Listen.
And that's a way of feeling like intertwined and close with each other.
That makes sense.
You have that connection like mentally. So in a way, you know, if you have a mental connection, maybe it's like, if you're going to display it, that might be how you display it.
Right.
You know?
And I've seen pretty much everything the Wachowskis have done, except for their one TV show. I mean, the things that they've written, produced, all that stuff. Like Ninja Assassin, I saw. I think they produced that, and it's not even a good movie. So I need to watch Sense8. It's just, it seems like it's kind of challenging, so I feel like I'd have to sit there and be like really focused. It's not like something I could put on in the background like Supergirl and be like, oh, okay, this is cool, so look at Supergirl go. Whatever.
I don't know, to me it feels like
Riverdale.
It feels like a Matrix,
right?
Matrixy vibe,
which I feel like I'd have to sit there and focus on it, and it's hard to find time to want to focus on something, but it's still on Netflix, so I'll definitely check that out.
It's one of my favorite shows.
I know you guys have watched it and you guys love it, so I need to get it. Well, if it's one of your favorite shows, you should probably see how it ends. Also,
I'm just so sad.
Did you ever consider it a plot hole, the fact that
no.
Cypher? Well, I mean, we get there. The fact that Cypher has plugs himself in, I guess, and talks to Agent Smith. Like normally, they have an operator kind of loading them in. Or something like that. Did you ever consider a plot hole?
I'd like to think that they were in the Matrix as a team together, and he goes and breaks away from them and goes has that conversation with Agent Smith.
Okay.
That's what I think.
I did a little search on this because I was wondering. I'm like, oh man, don't tell me this movie has a plot hole in it. I just literally wrote on my notes, this is a perfect movie. Don't tell me it's not a perfect movie. Don't take this away from me, internet. And apparently the Wachowskis have said that when Neo comes in to see Cypher, remember he's like, you scared the bejesus out of me, another Jesus reference, that he was working on an automated script where it can kind of load itself, and then I guess he just plugged himself in from behind, which sounds kind of dirty.
But how would he unplug himself out?
I don't know.
Unless the script...
Maybe the agents are part of the Matrix, maybe they kicked him out. But that makes sense why he would react like really jump so much when Neo shows up, because if it was anybody other than Neo, they would be able to read the code and be like, hey, what the hell are you doing, man? But Neo's just like, oh, do you always look at it in code? It's like, oh, blonde, brunette, redhead. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. So, and Cypher was clearly,
so fast?
Well, he also can't read the code. He doesn't know what that means. And yeah, it goes so fast too. Cypher is obviously working after hours. Everybody's like asleep or whatever, and he's working on something secretly. So that kind of makes sense and makes me feel slightly better about the fact that he just randomly shows up having a steak dinner with Agent Smith, talking about wanting to be an actor and stuff. So yeah, I like that explanation, and I'll buy that. I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that any movie where, like, I'm just going to call it the Matrix complex.
Okay.
Where you think that you're in, you think that your life is one way, and then the veil is lifted and the whole world isn't as it seems. Matrix complex.
Yeah.
Because there's several movies and shows that are like this, like The Truman Show. That's essentially the Matrix complex. Reality and
perception and reality.
TV show, veils unlifted. He thinks it's his life. Veils unlifted. He's his life is a TV show.
So one of my two favorite movie stars apparently.
Westworld.
Yeah,
it's the same concept. They think that they're just in a saloon, acting out every day. We talked about
Inception a little bit. We referenced that.
Bells
That's another
lifted,
one.
They're just
you're in a dream, man, or not.
What did you say?
Inception.
Oh, Inception. Yeah. Wreck-It Ralph. You think
okay, sort of.
You think like, oh, you're in a video game, veil lifted. There's this whole other world.
There's this whole other world, and you're gonna wreck it.
Yeah, and you're gonna wreck it. Do you think people today would watch this movie and think that it's as incredible as we think it is, or is it because we grew up in that time when there was nothing like this anywhere around?
I still don't feel like there's much like this.
No, there's nothing much.
I mean,
there's not much like this.
A couple times I mentioned Inception being kind of similarly trying to achieve similar things as far as the perception and reality thing, and challenging audiences to really think in new ways, and kind of seeing the world in a way that they hadn't before, whether it's with dream levels or like through Neo's eyes as he's reading the code of the Matrix.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's few and far between. Like
but in most movies today, it's more CGI based. Like say Avengers: Infinity War.
Right.
It's super action packed. A lot of CGI. That's the world that people are growing up like. That's that right. Cinematic experience that people are growing up with now.
Everything's shot in a warehouse with green screens,
exactly,
on actual sets.
Exactly, like the Planet of the Apes movies. It's all green screen,
right?
That's the cinematic world that people are living in. That kids now are living in,
right?
Are they going to go and look back at The Matrix that comes off as kind of like an indie action film? Are they going to look at it with the same?
My kids are. They're going to be raised watching The Matrix. Like, hey,
of it?
You better be respectful to The Matrix.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matrix.
Or do we like it so much because we grew up with it and it's like a nostalgic thing, and there really wasn't anything near that.
I think you can say the same. I mean, obviously it's a different type of entertainment in a way, but you could say the same thing about Star Wars. That's like got another 20-something years on The Matrix. People are still talking about the original Star Wars. They're not saying, oh, it feels dated, oh, it's dumb, or whatever. It's like,
well,
it's
like
still considered...
young people, though?
Yeah, young people, too. Star Wars is one of those multi-generational things that, like, people that were little kids in the 70s went to see it in theaters and are now like in their 50s are watching it, and also people that are like 5 years old are still watching Star Wars. So
I think it also depends on what age you show your child.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't show my 5-year-old The Matrix.
No, but if you show,
Daddy, are we in a computer program? Maybe.
I don't know. Elon Musk said we might be in a simulation.
Yeah, exactly.
If Elon Musk says it,
it must be so.
So, yeah, like if you showed your child Star Wars at a young age, they might be more susceptible to love Star Wars. But if you showed them when they're older and more judgmental to films because they don't see it through like that wide-eyed, like fantastical, like lens that children view things.
Right.
That might be damaging to a lot of movies that have that like effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like movies like The Matrix and Star Wars, like it's more content carried, not as much CGI.
Right.
Like Star Wars has a lot of CGI, but it's not like CGI like now.
Not the original.
Yeah.
The originals are miniatures and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean like...
The now Star Wars have CG, but it's...
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. I think there's enough richness here that I think it's not going to appeal to kids the same way. Like, you're not going to have little kids running around with Neo and Agent Smith action figures as much, because it's not that kind of movie. It's an adult sci-fi action thriller type of deal.
Yeah.
But I do think that once people reach adulthood, I think they will continue to discover this movie in the same way that they're watching, like, Taxi Driver and like Scorsese things and Tarantino and Pulp Fiction and things like that.
Those are like dramas, though. Dramas are almost ageless.
But still, there's certain richness. It's films that have films of a certain class, regardless of genre. And I mean, The Matrix easily stands above most sci-fi ranges more than perhaps most genres. Sci-fi ranges from like Sharknado level bullshit where like this is barely comprehensible as a movie, let alone entertaining or anything. It's like this barely makes any fucking sense.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of ludicrous bullshit thrown on screen to be silly. Whether you enjoy that or not, whether the acting sucks, like The Room style type, where it's a movie so bad it's entertaining, or it's just a shitty movie, and then all the way over to like some of the best movies ever made in sci-fi, a lot of them. And I think The Matrix is firmly entrenched on the latter end of the spectrum. So there you have it. That's the bonus content for the original Matrix episode from 2019. Stay tuned in a few days for the Matrix Revolutions episode with Jackson and I talking about that third part of the Matrix trilogy. And thanks for listening, and stick around. The Matrix still has you.
This has been a production of CrookedTable.com. All rights reserved.
CROOKED.